In today's video, I decided to torture myself by playing the VK16801P in World of Tanks console. This is of course the tier 8 German heavy tank and is one of the vehicles that I absolutely do not like playing. It is not absolutely horrible, it is not absolutely terrible, but it is completely against what I enjoy within the game, and that is playing a very slow, lumbering tank that relies upon armour but doesn't really get armour because everyone knows the weak points. The weak points being that little cupola on the top of the vehicle, along with the side of the turret, the front of the turret, the lower plate, the side, basically everywhere that isn't just the mantlet of the vehicle, and even then, like the Maus, it can be penned in the mantlet by high enough premium rounds when you're looking directly at them. Of course, you have to angle the turret slightly to avoid that, but yeah, ultimately it's a little bit painful. But it does have 490 alpha, so it's got a little bit of a chunker on it, so you can have some fairly decent games when playing in this thing. But overall, it's not going to be outstanding. You are not going to be able to super carry a lot of games, especially when you see your best friend in the artillery on the enemy team, because this tank is so slow, it's massive, and a juicy slab of hit points that the artillery love taking away from you. Now, we're coming up against a KV-4, we've also got a Tiger, and of course I get penned through the turret by the KV-4, and then I get hit by the artillery. So basically everything that this tank is, now I get hit in the cupola by the KV-4, and he's just continually poking me. I'm very scared that artillery is just going to ruin my game, but we luckily use the good accuracy because this tank's so slow that it doesn't have the worst dispersion in the world. Now I'm trying to push towards whatever's in front of me or anyone. Unfortunately, I nudge into the AMX after he gets tracked by the same little toxic piece of garbage that is the artillery. But regardless of that, we're now pushing on towards the opponents, and that is where the Maushan or the VK or the Mauerbreaker or the Maus do not like. They also do not like fighting on ridgelines, and you can see that here. The gun elevation and the gun depression of these things is not particularly great, so you're not really very flexible. Along with going so slow, you're definitely not flexible. So it's a little bit of a pain when deciding you want to get this thing, or if you're deciding that you want to kind of push forward and get to the action, because you can find a lot of the game is going to be very slow, and we're seeing that here against a lot of the tanks that we're trying to take out. We do manage to hit the prototype, it doesn't come up with any damage for some reason, but yeah, we do actually take him out and get the enemy destroyed within this game. But also got the Bakshat 15555 who's pushing a little bit out of his comfort zone back to the garage, and maybe he'll play a different type of class, but you can only hope. We all know he's probably got the T92 and the GWE100 and all of the other vehicles at tier 10 that are toxic. But you've got the Maushan and the SU-130PM. The problem with this vehicle is that you cannot really push all too hard, but what you can do is find lovely side shots on the turret of the machine, because of course no one likes the machine. The machine is a horrible tank to actually witness within this game, but you can see here the Maushan being so long and being so annoyingly big. We managed to kind of take out a nice shell on our kind of big brother, I guess, the Tetri counterpart of this vehicle at tier 9. And yes, you do have side armor if you're side scraping like this, but if you're coming up against like super high penetration rounds like you're seeing on some of the tier 10 tank destroyers, they can go through the upper plate of the VKP, or the Mauerbreaker, which is the kind of skinned version of the VK. So you've got to be very careful when you're pushing towards a lot of them, especially if you're angling down on the slope. Like currently we are actually angled down, so if we get spotted out in the open and the tank destroyer is in front of us, they're going to be able to get a nice shot into us. We somehow managed to hit the Liss on the move and hit him in the side. The Iron Rain is in fact spotted on the enemy team, and now we're just pushing forward. We know that the machine is over here, the Iron Rain is there, the CS-52 is over to our left, and we've also then got a medium tank that we're not entirely sure of until he takes out a teammate in the Scorpion, being the Lorraine 40T. So it's a 6 versus 4. We've done 3,240 damage, which is not bad at all, so we can't really complain all too much, but the list somehow spots us, which is super annoying and takes away the last remaining kind of buffer between us and back to the garage in this game. So it's now a situation where we have to be very careful, and knowing now that I am in the middle of the open and the machine could come and YOLO me at any point, or the CS52 could come and YOLO me, I decide to take the kind of appropriate action of retreating back to my teammates. So you should always do this if you have the time in World of Tanks, because although you can try and make the last stand and be the epic victory that you envision when you're playing up against things like the machine and stuff like that, realistically they're going to come around the corner with premium ammo and they're going to go through the front of you, so it doesn't really matter if you are trying to win the game using an epic feat, because often 9 times out of 10 it doesn't really matter how good of a player you are. If you are in the wrong position, they're just going to take you out super quickly. So we're going to get into a better position and hopefully we can win this with our team. So we're going to retreat back. I'm a one-shot, of course. The Iron Rain gets spotted, so what we do is a fairly clever thing, and that's just going up the hill so we can get the kind of advantage of being able to see where this Iron Rain is. I am a little bit hesitant though, because we could get spotted by him from this point, so I don't want to be too stay there for too long, especially if the Iron Rain isn't going to get spotted. But I'm equally hesitant as to if the Iron Rain does get spotted and starts ploughing rounds into our teammate, that we're not going to be able to support him and he's going to get taken out, and therefore we may lose the game. So I need to be somewhat around, or at least able to help out the team as and when I'm needed, or at least get a shell or two into the opponents as they go. Luckily, our friendly artillery does decide to take half the hit points off of the machine. Whether he missed him or hit him, I don't care. He's taken 700 hit points away from the machine and we absolutely love it, which means he's now only a 2-shot for the rest of our team, or alternatively, he could be a 1-shot for the ISU. CS52 does get spotted along with the Iron Rain by the tank destroyer that we have. Iron Rain takes a huge hit, and unfortunately, as we were trying to pre-aim where the CS was going to come up, the internet connection goes terrible and it lags, and we're suddenly looking at the floor even though we haven't done anything with our controller. So, I mean, yes, it makes so much sense. But anyway, with 3,240 damage done, I'm getting bored. I mean, I'm sure you guys are if you're watching this, and I guess that showcases exactly what these tanks can be like, and why I do not like these vehicles, because they are so slow and because they don't have the most enjoyable gameplay style, at least for me, because I like being an aggressive player. I like to get in there and do something. I'm not saying that is always the best thing to do, and I often get caught out, and I know I could have done better games if I just held back a little bit, but it's just not my playstyle. It's not what I'm about, and I would rather enjoy the games that I play than just kind of farm damage and get better XP every single game. That being said, when you do have the outrageous games, it's really fun. But yeah, ultimately I play this game for fun, not to just stress out about the fact that I've done slightly less damage. And yes, I do have the win rate that suggests that I have done that in the past. You know, I have stressed out about trying to win so many games, but I find actually when you play a little bit more casually, or at least you start thinking a hell of a lot less about, oh, is this going to affect my win rate, blah blah blah, that you end up playing better because you're generally just not having to think about that and you're just playing the game as and when it comes. Granted, if you do focus on that, you'll probably get better slightly faster, so, you know, I guess it's two sides of a coin, at least at the minute. So at this point I know that the Borsig, or the Iron Rain, is sat in front of me over to the left, because we got spotted from the left, and you see me cresting the ridge. The Iron Rain does in fact actually get spotted. He goes behind the rock. We know that he's going to continue moving along that rock, so all I have to do at this point is just make sure I pre-aim the bush. He does in fact go undetected, and he lands around into us but bounces, which is lovely, and we actually secure the victory on him. It was a very painful result to be able to get 3,500 damage. It took a lot longer than I would have hoped, and if I was in a faster tank, I probably could have helped out the team and had a better chance at winning that game. Even though we did win in the end, if the players on the enemy team were slightly better or they did things slightly differently, it might have been a whole different story and we could have ended up quite easily losing it just purely because of the flexibility of the Malbreaker or the VK. Now the next gameplay we have is on Arctic Region, and this is a game or map that I actually really was hoping to enjoy with the VKP. I'm not going to spoil it, but it kind of was enjoyable, at least for some period of the game, and the kind of key things about this vehicle obviously are the armour model, and although the last game showcased that it doesn't always work and you get penned quite a lot, by a lot of tanks the same tier as you, so as soon as you start coming up against tanks in tier 10, it's not good at all, but yes, we can still hope that we come out with a win, and the Snakebite on the enemy team decides he's going for a dip in our spawn, and YOLOs himself into the lake. Don't know why, but there you go. Of course, World of Tanks can be played by a variety of different levels of players, and some people just like getting removed within the first minute of the game. But we'll push forward. I'm going to try and last as long as I can within this game, and so we're going to push over to the left hand side. This is typically where the heavy tanks go on this map, and if you take your heavy tank over here, I want to show you one key spot that, especially if you're in a slower tank, that can be spotted by a lot of the opponents, and you'll notice that actually the enemy team, the medium tank on the enemy team, has actually pushed up into our dip, which is where I always go if I play a medium tank, at least at the beginning of the game, then reposition accordingly. They have actually pushed really heavily into the kind of an annoying position down in the dip, and then it can be really hard to actually dig them out without just YOLOing them. But you're seeing here, this is the position that I was trying to say about. And what you can do from here is actually just push forward and go underneath the kind of ridges so that you can avoid getting hit. Now, whether or not that is going to happen with this game, as you see the enemy artillery pushing a lovely barrage towards us, it's the Equalizer, of course, the most annoying artillery piece in the game, potentially, and then the Bourrasque comes out of nowhere. I'm in a terrible spot here, and he pumps me with both shells. We may get our revenge later on, but you'll just have to wait and see. But the Bourrasque is a vehicle that I love. It's one of my favourite tier 8 mediums in the game just because it's fast. It has the 700 alpha, or 720 alpha I should say for accuracy. And yes, he's pumped me full. So I hate it when I end up trading more hit points than ideal. So obviously that ended up with us losing 260 hit points comparatively. But we put one into the Dragon and we're back up to at least the same amount of damage that we've received. Of course, that is the kind of key aim. If you can deal the same amount of damage that you receive, then you are impacting the game positively. For the most part, anyway. Sometimes not all damage is equal, and so you can end up with some damage being useless at the end of the game when someone's just been camping the entire game, which means that, you know, they're probably a lot less useful than someone who deals the early damage and removes a lot of the tanks at the beginning of the game. But nonetheless, we now have the whole enemy team that have basically crushed our entire southern flank, and they're now moving into our base, and we are looking like it's going to be a bit of a rout. But in this game, we spot the Iron Rain. We can put one into him. I know that there's going to be a Bourrasque here somewhere that we've got to remove. He's obviously the one spotting me, so we're going to wait until I'm undetected and then see if we can poke out and get a shot into him. So you're seeing here, I get spotted, so he's going to be in the bush. Now I push around that corner, place a lovely auto-aim shell into him, and using the great dispersion of this vehicle when moving, I can put one into him. And we've done 2,000 damage in this game, which is less than satisfactory. The Bourrasque is still going to be there. I'm thinking about just blind firing. I probably should at that point, but I wasn't sure whether he's actually there or not. He is in fact there, but we put one into the Iron Rain. Unfortunately, he's the one that actually hit us there, which was disappointing. And then the Yahtzee on the enemy team decides to come around, and that vehicle, if you've seen my most recent kind of video on that tank, you'll know that that is actually a perfect vehicle in the game. Unfortunately, I do the absolute worst thing that you can do when you've got him tied up with a non-turreted tank destroyer is then kind of move away from the side of him. If I just stayed up against the side of him, I could have stopped him from turning towards me, and then I could have removed him from the game. But unfortunately that doesn't happen, and we end up losing and getting taken out. And this is pretty much what the Mauerbreaker can be. It is not very good at carrying games, so don't expect this to be a reliable carrier within the game. But thank you very much for watching. I hope that kind of gives you an idea as to one tank that I absolutely did not want to play in World of Tanks console, but I did it anyway, just to showcase the vehicle. But thank you very much. I hope you did enjoy, and don't forget to check out some of the other gameplays on the Halloween tanks on screen right now that you can take a look at. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.